my community post, I posted a channel that I found last night, which was very useful, of shortwave radio, um, which are just different frequencies or whatever. Most are taken from his location, which are in the Mojave Desert. Um, we love the Mojave, don't we? But anyways, so if you look through his channel, there's Russian, Korean, Chinese, whatever, right? It almost reminds me of my high blood pressure ridden grandfather who used to like sit in his room and listen to the police scanner all the time, right? Anyways, uh, I went through, I picked out the ones that were like mystery, right? Don't really have a, a definitive source. And I think what I'm going to do with those is what I usually do with frequency, right? Like, um, I can clear it up. I can use it naturally, right? And you may say, well, what's this got to do with the price of tea in China? Well, and you, if you look through his, it's not the first one, it's the second one, right? That I posted. If you look through his videos, you'll see that he has harp frequency sweeps and recordings on there, which is important for everyone to understand, right? Because just like what you perceive as empty space here, right? At any given place that you don't have something physical in it, right? Just as you perceive that as empty, it's not empty. Like on a different bandwidth, on a different vibration, there are things in that space within your space that is not visible to the eye on that particular light spectrum, etc. Right? So the same goes with audible frequencies. Just because it is not audible to your ears does not mean that it is not existent in the space. It's the same concept of animals can hear a dog whistle, but you can't, right? And the frequency is like too high for your ear range or whatnot. So these things that get carried over the quote empty space, right, or empty waves, these things that get carried over it, you do absorb that whether you realize it or not. And you say, well, how is that dangerous? Well, that is dangerous to you because the brain is electrical, the nervous system is electrical, everything is electrical, right, in your body. They have made sure to separate anyone and their natural biology to the world that they coexist in and inhabit. Yes. So naturally, let's say that something gets repeated over and over and over these waves. Your brain will pick that up, right? Your brain is going to translate it however it chooses to, by how whatever neurons that are connected in your brain and however your brain works, right? I went back through his list and I was listening to one of them. They have something from 1988 and they have a song, right? Now you got to keep in mind, I grew up during that time. Where was I? My uncle was in the military, he was in the Army. I lived in Franklin, Georgia, which was close to West Point and all of that, right? It was not a particularly kind time in my life. And something that they did all the time was like play this horrible fucking music that I hated, right? Well, I probably hate it because I hated like living in that house. And so my brain relates that to them and that period or whatnot, right? And this is the problem with sound, and like mind control, or the problem with sound and hypnosis, or the problem with sound and brainwashing. It's the problem with that, right? Like, you get put in a very abusive home, they replay this music over and over and over and over and over again, right? And drive a person fucking insane, right? So whenever you hear that over a shortwave radio, right, for someone who's sensitive to frequency, right, like, strikes a nerve, yeah. Most people will go about their lives and be completely unaware of this. However, I urge you to consider graphene nanoparticles, self-assembling nanoparticles, that create uh, magnetism, and how that interacts with the electromagnetic field. And you add amplified frequency on top of that, right, inside of an already undeveloped human brain and nervous system, right? Because let's be honest, like, their goal was not to make the population intelligent in the right ways, right? So imagine, if you will, someone's brain who is not used to these frequencies and whatnot, like, absorbing this. It could drive a person crazy. It could drive a person to do something they would not normally do, right? It could cause them to act out of character, and they have no idea why, right? And this is the big deal with the frequency. There are other bigger implications of this that are not good for those who are attempting to use it, right? They, most of the time, whenever people have a nefarious purpose, they can only see what they're benefiting from. They never check the cons list, right, to see if it's something that they should do ultimately in the bigger picture. So that will be their, like, demise, right? Uh, yeah, right. This world and the nefarious have a knack for not considering the whole of anything, right? Just like whenever they were talking about putting in, like, magnetic roadways or whatever, I was like, has anyone thought about, like, how that's going to work or disturb the natural electromagnetic field? Has anyone thought about that, right? Has anyone thought about, like, how that is going to apply friction to the infrastructure of metal and electricity that you already have in place? Has anyone thought about that? No. Has anyone thought about how the Earth's magnetic field goes through significant changes every year, and it goes through cycles? Has anyone thought about that, like, and how that's going to affect? No. The same way they haven't thought about, like, how electric cars just randomly blow up, right? Like, they haven't thought about, like, how all of these great grand ideas that they have are actually going to work with the bigger, badder boss, right? They haven't. Why? Well, friends, we call that short-sightedness, right? We call that breaking off science into so many branches that none of them know how they work together, basically, right? Yeah, this person over here working on this project, this person over here working on this project, blah, 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 and they all have their own objective and their own goals, right? And no one ever thinks, well, with all of this going on simultaneously, like, how does this all, what kind of symphony does this create in the greater, grander scheme of things, right? And human consideration, forget about it. Like, they aren't even thinking about the population. They don't give a shit, right? They're just like, you know, throw all this garbage in front of them and do whatever and feed them plastic and chemicals and just, expect them to be good little slaves, right? I woke up on one. What did I listen to while I was sleeping? Oh, I did a, a hemisphere sync, a brain hemisphere sync. It's really good. It's a really good frequency run that I do, yeah. It's what I use whenever I want all of the information that I have absorbed to make cohesive sense, right? There's something interesting about the left side and the right side of the brain whenever they work separately, right? But there's something beautiful about whenever they come together and then it just makes all the pieces work, right? Like all of that weird random information, like it makes a cohesive uh, sense of it. Yeah. I don't know if that would happen, like if you started listening to something like that, like right off the bat, right? Like it took me, I just started doing the syncing probably in the last like year or two. It's definitely been since I've been here. So, but I know for one, whenever I intentionally started using different frequencies, right? And you got to keep in mind too, like I've lived a relatively quiet life. I didn't watch TV growing up. I mean, I watched so little TV that it's natural for me to say I didn't watch TV growing up. I was outside all the time, etc. Right, so naturally that's going to be ingrained in me. Whenever I grow up, I don't own a TV. Right, I don't agree with. I just understand frequency enough. Right, but whenever I started using it to intentionally, I did notice for like the first 2 weeks, right, my brain going through changes. Right, I did. It was quite eye-opening to be set to something your whole entire life and then to intentionally change it and to intentionally open uh, and make way for new neural connections. Yes. But this mess that is being echoed, even I have shown you in my videos, right? Like, even innocuous sounds, especially like whenever I'm in the city or whatever, become cohesive, right? So no matter how you are translating it or how it's translated in your space, the potential is there for it to be um, cohesive sound. And that can be an issue, right? Depending on how your brain interprets that information. Like, it can drive people mad. It can make them do things that are out of character should they not be strong in the mind. So, need to get people to understand how to differentiate themselves from uh, outside frequencies, yes, or resonances or things that are going on, like in the space that is outside of their perception, right? Or at least help them to figure out how to uh, recognize that, right? And the best way to do that is to help people, one, heal using sound, two, become very, very self aware and mindful of their thoughts at any time and their actions at any time, right? Is the best way to protect from being the victim of those with nefarious uh, agendas with signals. Yeah.